Imagine you have spent your entire life looking at the same light. Not a photograph, not a screen, the actual light, arriving at your eyes every clear night, crossing distances so incomprehensible that the number itself has no meaning to the human brain. You know the name of that star. You know its temperature, its estimated age. Scientists have written papers about it. Children have pointed at it. And then someone sits you down and explains something that no textbook ever made clear. That light left its source before your civilization existed, before your language existed, before your species had any concept of looking up and wondering. Here is the question that will follow you for the rest of this video. What does it mean to see something that you can never, under any law of physics, ever reach? For a moment, allow yourself to feel what the 20th century felt like. In 1969, a human being stood on the moon. 12 of them walked its surface. The distance, 384,000 kilometers, had once seemed mythological. Then it became a footprint. In 1977, we launched Voyager 1, a machine built with 1970s technology, now more than 24 billion kilometers from Earth. Still transmitting, still moving. We sent probes to Mars. We landed rovers that drove across alien terrain. We photographed the surface of Pluto, 4.5 billion kilometers away, with enough resolution to see mountain ranges. Every decade, humanity pushed further. The trajectory seemed clear. The arc of progress seemed inevitable. If we could reach the moon in one generation, if we could send machines to the edge of the solar system in a lifetime, then surely, the stars were simply a matter of time. That is what the 20th century promised us. That promise was not a lie exactly. It was something more painful than a lie. It was an incomplete truth. Let us talk about distance the way it actually is, not the way textbooks present it, the way it feels when you sit with it long enough. If the Earth were the size of a marble, roughly 1 centimeter across, the moon would sit about 30 centimeters away. You could hold them both in your hands. The sun, on that same scale, would be roughly 2 meters wide, and it would sit 215 meters away from your marble Earth, nearly the length of 2 football fields. Neptune, the outermost planet, would be 6.5 kilometers from your marble. Voyager 1, after 47 years of travel, would be roughly 160 kilometers from your marble. Now find the nearest star. Proxima Centauri. On this same scale, with Earth as a marble, Proxima Centauri sits 56,000 kilometers away. That is not a typo. If you drove there in a car at highway speed, without stopping, without sleeping forever, it would take you over 600 years to travel the scaled-down distance to our nearest stellar neighbor. The real distance is 4.24 light years. Light, the fastest thing permitted to exist in this universe, takes 4 years and 3 months to make that crossing. Voyager 1, our furthest spacecraft, is moving at roughly 17 kilometers per second. At that speed, it would take approximately 73,000 years to reach Proxima Centauri. Not a generation, not a civilization. 73,000 years. And Proxima Centauri is the closest star. The universe contains 2 trillion galaxies, each holding hundreds of billions of stars, most of them so remote that light traveling since the Big Bang has not yet had time to show us their full image. The star in our title is not the nearest one. It is one of the ones we can see clearly, one that captures attention, one that, in another era, might have been called a destination. It is unreachable, not difficult to reach, unreachable. And physics is about to explain exactly why. Of course, you may already be thinking about what comes next in human engineering. Ion propulsion, already real, already operational on spacecraft like Dawn and Hayabusa. Efficient, elegant, capable of sustained acceleration over months and years. A ship using advanced ion engines could theoretically reach speeds several times greater than Voyager. Fusion propulsion, the engine of the future, if we solve the energy containment problem. Project Daedalus, proposed in the 1970s, suggested a fusion pulse spacecraft could reach Barnard's star in roughly 50 years. Promising, tantalizing, antimatter engines. Pure annihilation of matter and antimatter converting directly into thrust. Theoretically, the most efficient propulsion possible, approaching meaningful fractions of the speed of light. Generation ships. A craft large enough to house an entire community across multiple human lifetimes. The people who land would be the great-grandchildren of those who launched. Laser sail propulsion. Breakthrough Starship, a real, funded scientific initiative, proposes accelerating a tiny craft to 20% the speed of light using a focused Earth-based laser array. At that speed, it could reach Alpha Centauri in roughly 20 years. Each of these feels like a doorway. Hold that feeling, because the next section of this video is going to close each one, gently but permanently. The speed of light is 299,792 kilometers per second. No object with mass has ever traveled at that speed. No object with mass ever will. This is not a technological barrier. This is a geometric property of spacetime itself. As an object with mass accelerates toward light speed, the energy required approaches infinity. The limit is not a ceiling we can engineer past. It is written into the structure of reality. The Tsiolkovsky rocket equation describes how much fuel a spacecraft requires to accelerate. The relationship is exponential. To accelerate a crewed vessel with life support, radiation shielding, food, water, psychology systems, medical equipment, to even 1% of light speed would require a fuel mass that dwarfs anything humanity has ever engineered. Scale the ambition upward, and the fuel requirement becomes larger than planets. Radiation. Beyond the protective bubble of Earth's magnetic field, space is not empty. It is filled with galactic cosmic rays, high-energy particles originating from stellar explosions across the galaxy. No shielding material we have developed or theorized provides adequate protection for a multi-decade journey. The cumulative radiation exposure on a voyage to a nearby star would be catastrophic. The DNA damage, the neurological degradation, the elevated cancer probability approaches certainty. Time dilation is real. At high fractions of light speed, time for the traveler slows relative to those left behind. A crew traveling at 90% of light speed would age slower than Earth. They would arrive, perhaps, only decades older. But Earth would have aged centuries. Everyone they knew would be dead. Every institution that sent them would be transformed beyond recognition. They would arrive not as heroes, but as survivors of a civilization that no longer exists. The star would take their youth. Physics would take their home. Even if we solved propulsion, even if we found a way to manage radiation, even if time dilation were acceptable, the human body would still fail. In microgravity, bone density decreases at roughly 1 to 2% per month. Muscles atrophy. The spine elongates. Fluid shifts toward the upper body, increasing intracranial pressure and degrading vision, a condition called spaceflight-associated neuroocular syndrome, already documented in astronauts after 6 months aboard the International Space Station. The heart weakens. Without gravity-demanding effort, cardiac muscle reduces in mass. Blood volume decreases. The cardiovascular system, built over millions of years of evolutionary pressure on Earth's surface, begins a slow and irreversible recalibration. The immune system loses its calibration. Latent viruses reactivate. Inflammatory responses become erratic. The body's internal communication, the biochemical language it uses to maintain itself, grows confused by an environment it was never designed to inhabit. And then there is the mind. Isolation. Confinement. The knowledge that no rescue is possible. The psychological weight of watching the only home your species has ever known shrink to a point of light indistinguishable from the stars surrounding it. Studies of long-duration spaceflight crews document depression, cognitive slowing, interpersonal conflict, and a phenomenon called the third quarter effect, a significant psychological decline in motivation and mood during the final portion of extended missions. A mission to a nearby star would not have a final quarter. It would have generations of psychological inheritance, each born into confinement, each dying without destination. The body does not simply endure space. The body becomes incompatible with return. Those who might arrive would not be the people who left. Biologically, neurologically, psychologically, they would be something new, something irreversible. We have arrived at the truth this video was always building toward. Humanity is not limited by its technology. We are limited by physics, by biology, by the fundamental, non-negotiable architecture of the universe we find ourselves inside. The laws of physics have built a wall around us. Not a wall of ignorance or political failure or funding cuts. A wall made of the speed of light, the rocket equation, the biological fragility of organisms evolved for a single small planet, and the sheer, silent immensity of the distances between stars. The universe is not waiting to be crossed. It was not designed with crossing in mind. It is under no obligation to accommodate the ambitions of a species that has existed for, in cosmic terms, an eye blink. We will continue to see that star every clear night. Its light will arrive at our eyes, having traveled for years or decades or centuries to reach us, a message sent before any of us were born. We will study it. We will name features on planets that may orbit it. We will send radio waves toward it, knowing any reply would take longer than a human lifetime to return. We will point at it and feel something, curiosity, longing, a pull that seems to demand movement toward it. And we will not reach it. Not in this century. Not with any currently theorized technology. Perhaps not in any century. Perhaps not ever. The barrier is not in our budget. It is not in our will. It is in the nature of what we are, and the nature of the universe that contains us. There is a strange peace available in that truth, if you allow yourself to sit with it long enough. We are a species that can see further than we can ever go. We can measure distances that would consume our entire civilization to cross. We can understand the physics that prevents our passage, describe it in mathematics, confirm it in experiment. We are, perhaps, the only thing in the known universe that can look at its own cage and comprehend its dimensions. That star will still be there tomorrow night, and the night after. This light will keep arriving. It will outlast every person watching this video. It will outlast the buildings you live in and the languages you speak, and it will remain unreachable. Not because we failed, because some distances were never meant to be crossed. They were only ever meant to be seen.